Okay, so we're just going to continue on our journey with factoring. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to just only do a couple, like 3 examples from here, because I assume that you have it and you just need a couple more things. And so I'm going to try and abbreviate this just a little bit. And then if you need more, then you can watch the video from class. So, okay, so we're going to just start talking about factoring again and how you need to have 4 terms in order to factor. Whether you're using the box method or the FOIL method, okay, because those are the only 2 that I'm going to actually go over for this class. So if you're using the box method, you make a box. It has 4. You need to figure out what goes here and here. If you're using the FOIL method, you break it down into be 4 terms, and you need to figure out what goes there and there. And there's just a property for these. I know that these 2 numbers right here, the mystery numbers, they always multiply to be A times C. So in this case would be 1 times 54, and they always add. So it's always A times C, and they always add to be B, which is 15. Okay, so we're looking for 2 numbers. I said you could very easily do this using Desmos last class right here. So you do x times y, so you just write x times y is equal to the product. In this case, it's 54. So we're doing 54 and 15. And then this is going to be 15. And it's going to be 6 and 9. You look at where those 2 graphs intersect, and that's going to be, so it's going to be 6 and 9. So I know that this is 6x and this is 9x. This would be 6x plus 6x. This would be plus 9x. So I find my greatest common factor here, which is x. Greatest common factor here is 6. X times x is x squared. X times 9 is 9x. And so my factored form is x plus 6 times x plus 9. If you want to do this method, you find the greatest common factor, which is x. When I factor that out, that's x plus 6. The greatest common factor for my second part is 9. It's a positive 9, so I make sure I put that sign here, that positive 9. X plus 6. And so I notice that I have x plus 6 in both places. I divide out by that x plus 6, and I'm left with x plus 9. So it doesn't matter which way that you do it, it's still going to be the same. Okay? So I'm going to just do, because this video is just for people that are fairly comfortable with this and just need a couple boosters. For the next one, I'm trying to find my 4 terms. I always put my 10x squared here and my negative 10 here. What am I looking for? I'm looking for a number that multiplies to be 10 times negative 10. So that's going to be 100. And the 2 numbers have to add to be my b term, which is 21. Okay, and then 10x squared minus 10. Okay, so I can use Desmos. It's negative 121, so I go here. And it is 25 and negative 4. And it doesn't matter where you put it. My greatest common factor here is going to be x. Okay, my greatest common factor here, because this is negative, I always factor out a negative. That's going to be a negative 2. 5 times 2x, 5 times 2 is 10, x times x is x squared. 5 times what is 25 times 5, and I don't need my x there. And so my factored form is going to be 5x minus 2 times 2x plus 5. Here, the same thing. This should be a 25x. Find my greatest common factor, which is 5x. So I factor out a 5x. That's going to be a 2x plus 5. I divide this one. The greatest common factor is a negative 2. Again, if this third term is negative, you factor out a negative 2. That's going to be 2x plus 5. I notice that they both have 2x plus 5, so I factor that out, and I'm left with 5x minus 2. I'm going to do one of these down here. So again, just be really careful. This is A, this is C. In this case, my B value is equal to 0. So if you were doing a box like this and you have your 16x squared and your negative 49, you're looking for two numbers. They multiply to be 16 times negative 49, which is some horrible number, which is negative 784. And they also, they also have to add to be 0. Okay, and we don't stress about that too much, so we do 784 and 0. And this is a special case, but we're just not going to go over it. So it's negative 784, and this is going to be is equal to 0. And so I zoom out, I look for their intersection. That's going to be positive 28 and negative 28, which makes sense that it's going to be the same number because they have to add to be 0. So we have positive 28, negative 28x. My greatest common factor here is 4x. My greatest common factor here is 7. 4 times 4 is 16. X times x is x squared. 4 times negative 7 is 28, and I don't have to have the x there. And so my factored form is 4x plus 7 times 4x minus 7. So that's how you factor. We practiced that a little bit last class, okay? So we're going to actually extend it. We're going to actually talk about solving using factoring, just using the zero product property, okay? So basically, zero product property says if A times B is 0, then A has to be 0 or B has to be 0. So for this right here, I'm multiplying two things. I'm multiplying an x and an x plus 9. If they multiply to be 0, either x is equal to 0 or x plus 9 is equal to 0. And so you set it equal to 0 and you solve. And so I can find my solutions to my quadratic. I know my solutions are going to be negative 9 and 0. This next one, again, you identify the two things that are being multiplied. You see that there's no addition or subtraction. So I know either x minus 3 is equal to 0 or x minus 7 is equal to 0. So I solve both of these. My solutions for this would be x equals 3 or x equals 7. And those are my solutions. Okay. We're just going to do just a couple problems where you factor to solve. So for this first one, I don't have three terms here. I do have a greatest common factor of 4x. So I factor out of 4x, and that's going to be x minus 2 is equal to 0. Now I have my two things, my two factors that I'm multiplying. Either 4x is equal to 0 or x minus 2 is equal to 0. So x could be 0 or x could be 2. This one is not two terms, so I'm going to go through and factor. I'm just going to be using the box method just because I want consistency. So for this here, the first thing I would have to do is factor. Okay, so I have to find two numbers. They have to multiply to be 1 times negative 12, which is negative 12, and they have to add to be negative 1. You can use Desmos, but it ends up being negative 4 and positive 3. So greatest common factor is x, greatest common factor is negative 4. This is going to be 3. So my factored form for this is going to be x minus 4 times x plus 3. But remember that for these, we have it set equal to 0. Okay, so we have to do one more step. We set each factor equal to 0, and we solve. And so my solutions, and I should be writing this properly each time, you use these funny little brackets. You can find them above the enter symbol, negative 3, 4. Okay, and then for these, this would be 0, 2. Just going to do one more of these because it's really not much more than what we've been doing. For this one here, first thing I do is I factor, then I set the factors equal to 0, and I solve. So this is 6x squared. This is -4. I'm looking for two numbers. They multiply to be -24 because it's 6 times -4, and they add to be 5. So you can go to Desmos, negative, so it's -24 and 5. If you can't think of them, it's where the graphs intersect. It's going to be 8 and -3. So this is going to be 8x, this is -3x. I find my greatest common factor for my row, which is going to be 3x. My greatest common factor for this row is 4. Here, this is 2 and x. This is going to be -1. So my factors are going to be 3x plus 4 times 2x minus 1. But I remember that I'm solving is set equal to 0, so then I use my factors to solve. I know 3x plus 4 is equal to 0. So x is equal to -4/3, or 2x minus 1 would be equal to 0. X would be 1/2. And so I just write that -4/3 and 1/2, because you can have nasty answers. And that's how you